Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for this Nixle hosted webinar. Today you'll be hearing from a couple different speakers, and right now I'm going to hand it off to your first speaker, Director of Sales at Nixle, Paul Zach. Paul, take it away.
Thanks, Michael. Appreciate it. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. This is kind of the first time we've done this particular session, this particular webinar for what we are characterizing as, new customers that have just recently signed on. It's a little extra webinar that we wanted to throw into the mix to help everyone get off to a better start. So the name of the webinar is Setting You Up for Success with Nixle, Best Practices for Growing Your Subscriber Base. And one of the reasons we're doing this is because Nixle is growing at an extraordinarily rapid rate, and some of the processes that we've had in the past don't necessarily apply to or can grow as well with the amount of new customers we're bringing on a weekly, monthly basis. So we, again, wanted to add in this extra informational session to help people get off to a little bit of a better start. Also, a lot of the account executives, a lot of people on my team, and apologies, a little bit background here. I am in San Francisco here, sales director for Nixle, and I've got a team here in San Francisco. And my team is pretty much on the front lines. They're hearing what a lot of agencies need, what a lot of agencies want, what they like about Nixle, what they don't like about it, what they like about our competitors, what they don't like about it, so on and so forth. So they're on the front lines, and they're learning a lot just by talking to customers. So one of the reasons I wanted to have this session also is to maybe provide you some more insights, some more information as to what we're hearing in the market in general. And especially when you're looking to get started with your new community engagement mass notification system. So with that, if we can move to the next slide, great, thank you very much. The agenda here, I'll go through it pretty quick, is we have Nixle success in the field. We're going to start off with a few little stories about how Nixle has been successful in the field, and also map that a little bit to, again, best practices. Who's who at Nixle? Some of the topics that we've heard or questions we've heard is, who is this person, who is that person at Nixle? Am I just going to talk to them once, or am I going to have a, long relationship with this person? What's their role, responsibility, so on and so forth. We're going to go over some of the Nixle platforms, just because we have people on this line that have different platforms. One, they could have Connect, they could have Engage, or they could have 360. So we'll spend just a second talking about the differences so we make sure that everybody understands where they're starting from. And then we'll go into best practices, goals and strategies, growing subscriber base. We have an awesome guest speaker today, Captain Bowling from the Thomasville, North Carolina Fire Department. He, too, is a relatively recent adopter of Nixle over the past several months. He has embraced it, and he's utilized it quite perfectly for being such a short timer, if you will. So we wanted to bring him on in order to express to you what it's like to be somebody who's using Nixle initially for the first couple months. What are some best practices? And then, of course, we've got Q&A. Next slide, please. So a couple speakers here. We've got Brian Yim, who's on my team. He supports the Mid-Atlantic region. He's kind of my senior account executive, my left-hand person here at Nixle. Down below Brian there, we got Lindsay Rogers. She's going to help field a lot of the questions that everyone has coming in coming in through GoToMeeting. Up in the upper right-hand corner, we got Ivan, who has multiple states throughout the United States. Myself down below in the corner, and of course in the middle we have our guest speaker, Captain Bowling from the North Carolina Fire Department. And then one administrative reminder here that I just touched on a second ago. If you have questions, feel free to type in those questions in the screen or in the panel on the right-hand side. Type them anytime you want. Lindsay's going to be scrolling through it during the whole session and just either answering them, some of them to you immediately via text or via written, or some of them she'll select for reading at the end of this presentation. Okay, with that, I think we're going to flip things over to Brian.
All right, thank you very much, Paul. And Thank you, everybody, for taking the time out today to attend this webinar. We really hope that, like Paul mentioned, from some of us and from Captain, you'll get some good ways to use the systems, maybe some new ideas, and definitely a handful of best practices that will really drive you from the get-go to have a very successful partnership with your residents. And that's a word you'll hear me say very frequently on our webinar today. We're going to start off with some success stories, but really the reason that these agencies have been so successful is they treat Nixle as a partnership with the residents that they serve. It isn't simply just a tool to send out messages. It's really about understanding what sort of information, what sort of value your residents are looking for from you. So really take heed of that. Take a look at some of these stories that we've kind of pulled together from 3 of our most prominent agencies. And by all means, a best practice from the get-go. Go ahead and follow some of these agencies. We're going to present 3 agencies right at the top. Follow them on Nixle, find them on Nixle.com. If you want to, you can go ahead and opt into their zip code via 888-777. We'll go ahead and find that for you and present it at the tail end. But these are 3 agencies that have done a really good job embracing what it means to be a partner with the residents in their community. So a few success stories to start off with. The first one is San Angelo, Texas Police Department. Down in Texas, Tracy Gonzalez is a Nixle champion and a real big proponent of the concept of community engagement, another term you'll hear very frequently with us here today on the webinar. And the first story we have is something that is really a worst case scenario. You prepare for it, but you really hope it never comes to pass, and that's a missing child situation. What I want really to focus on from the best practice standpoint from this particular message that Tracy and her team sent out, really concise messaging. The vitals of the child are right there, 4'5", 100 pounds, where he was last seen, and of course an image. Very important to understand the differences between an alert and advisory and a community message. This is a critical situation, so they tagged it an alert. As you can see at the bottom, there are some standard instructions. So this is kind of one of those, this just seems pretty obvious, like we should absolutely do this. But really what built the success of this story is that Tracy and her team did a good job of sending out a whole host of other types of messages from the get-go. They don't use this simply for emergencies. They use it for a wide variety of other messages. And as such, they were able to build up a very generous database. They have a large percentage of their population that have opted in. And as such, here is the follow-up article. As you can see here, it's a little small, so I'll encapsulate it for you. The PD sent out the message. A Good Samaritan, a partner of yours in your community, a partner of theirs in their community, saw the message. They saw the Nixle message, and since they were so familiar with the different types of Nixle messages that the police department put out, they realized that this PD doesn't put out very many alerts. They usually live in communities and advisories, so if it's an alert, it's probably critical, mission critical. So what this Good Samaritan did was reviewed the message and noticed that this student or this child, this 10-year-old, was last seen right near their middle school. So as the article relays, this mother packed her son in the car and actually drove around that middle school and noticed that there was a little boy wandering around. Immediately, she followed the instructions on the Nixle message and contacted 911. And because of that message, you can see at the very bottom, SAPD says this child could still be missing if it wasn't for this Good Samaritan, Melissa Madrid. So the positive juice is flowing. This is a great way to utilize the Nixle system. But again, this is all because of a good partnership, a strong foundation that the police department established from the get-go with their residents. This next story is about Ripley County, Indiana, and I think Paul is the expert on this account, so I'm going to flip it back over to Paul, our director, and he's going to explain really this success story from Ripley County Sheriff. Paul?
Excellent. Thanks, Brian. I don't know if I'm an expert, but I'm familiar with this. I remember getting these messages when I was sitting at my desk here in San Francisco. So this is the sheriff's department who basically had an inmate escape. And the nice thing about this one is you'll see how quickly that the events happened and they recaptured this particular individual. You'll see there's a little arrow there on the left-hand side 10:50 p.m. Is approximately when they think the person escaped. And then you can see the second arrow there kind of in the middle. It says 3:32 a.m. is when they actually published the message. So it took them about 3 hours to publish the message, as they were trying to figure out what was going on. And then the next message, on the next screen, please, you'll see there are 2 more arrows. There we go. Number 3 and number 4 basically says that the email message, or there was a Good Samaritan basically message that they believe they found the individual, and they captured the individual at 9:57 a.m. So really just a couple of hours, and they captured the individual that had escaped. And the 4th arrow is the Herald Tribune publishing this particular story later on that afternoon. So less than 24 hours of full cycle. Person escaped, Nixle published, individual captured, and a good warm story from the local newspaper. And this goes to getting in what Brian was talking about, as far as you want to use the alerts a little bit more seldomly. You want to build up some credit. You want to publish a nice variety of messages to your constituents, so that when you do need them in this alert situation, you've captured their attention, and they've received messages from you, so they know who the Indiana sheriff is. They've received messages from that sheriff before, and it's not a surprise when they get this message looking for an escaped inmate. It also shows a little bit of the variety of use. Before it was the PD, now we've got the sheriff, and not only sheriff, but with a Department of Corrections type use case. So keep in mind the wide variety of use cases that you can use with Nixle. I've seen Nixle accounts before where all they publish are be on the lookouts or most wanted posters. You're not going to have good traction if you are myopic in your publications. So back over to Brian for Clayton County.
Great, thank you, Paul. Great color there. And one of the things that I picked up on with what Paul said was don't be myopic. And what I would encourage you all to do as new Nixle administrators is, for a second, put yourself not as a law enforcement or public safety professional. Take that hat off for 1 second and put yourself as a resident of the municipality you live in. Now, it could be the municipality you work in, and very well could be a neighboring municipality. What sort of messages would you want to receive? One thing that we hear frequently from successful agencies, residents, like the residents who come back to us here in Nixle, they call us up and say, this is great. How do I get more messages from where my parents live? Where can I get messages from where I work? The common recurring theme is there are many inconveniences, we'll say, that affect us residents on a day-to-day. One such inconvenience could be as simple as a traffic accident. Right? If, as a resident, you're driving home at 5 o'clock after work and you're in a rush to get home to prepare dinner and you suddenly see a bunch of brake lights, that's not the best way to end the day. Now imagine if you were that resident and you were notified by your local public safety agency, go ahead and avoid this area. Avoid Terra Boulevard and Mundy's Mill Road. Avoid that area. There is a motor vehicle accident. Now you go there, you go ahead and avoid that area, do a little detour, you get home 5 minutes late instead of an hour late. That's the type of stuff that the residents really love to get. This was a message that was pushed out by Clayton County Sheriff, and as you can see, they simultaneously posted it on Nixle as well as Facebook, and look at those comments that you get on Facebook, on their Facebook wall. I don't need to read it for you. I think you can see it all right there. This is what community engagement is all about. It's really understanding what it is that your residents are looking for. This is what I'm talking about when we speak of the partnership. Really understanding what it is that your residents want from you and then delivering it to them across multiple channels. Right? Some of those residents will get this message on text. Others will see it on Facebook. Really, your goal is to get as many messages out there across as many different channels. That way you can reach the proper intended recipient. So this is a great one we love to share because we see so many news stories today about, the bad things with public safety, the bad things with police departments. We should see more of these, really the good stuff. The thank you very much, sirs. Thank you for a job well done. This is something that we really enjoy seeing. These sort of messages bring a smile to our face. So with that, those nice little 3 stories to kick us all off, we're going to transition now into kind of an introduction to the platform. Like Paul mentioned, we have a handful of different solutions over here. So I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Ivan Harden. Ivan is an account executive who handles quite a few states, and he'll go ahead and talk about these different platforms that we have. Ivan?
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Brian. I really appreciate it. And thanks for that color on the thank you stories. I think those are really important, and it's something that a lot of agencies don't think about. They get something like Nixle, and they think it's only going to be for emergencies. And the truth is that there are lots of reasons that your residents want to hear from you. I know here in San Francisco, I take the train every day to work, and it is extremely frustrating when the train is not working. And so if I could get a message from the SFMTA every day about, what's going on with my particular train and how I'm going to get to work, that would be fantastic, and it would be reason enough to sign up. And then that way I'm going to be able to receive those safety messages when they do occur. Here we've got a few different platforms. So we've got a lot of people calling in from different areas, and based on your needs, you're going to need a different kind of platform. So we have 3 different ones. Connect is very limited. It's something that we give to an agency where they're saying, okay, all I really need is to send, occasional messages to a group of people, the end. I don't need to tailor that messaging in any way. I don't need to be able to call those people. I don't need anything else. The second tier is Engage, which is probably our most popular. It provides a lot of functionality for law enforcement, for emergency managers, for people who want to be in contact with visitors or have some sort of safety interest in different events, so that we allow them to have these keywords to get different databases and really tailor their messaging for their residents. If they want to reach out to just senior citizens, if they want to reach out to just Neighborhood Watch, we're able to create those different databases for them. It also gives them access to iPause, which is a channel that FEMA produces, which will allow you to send messaging to every single cell phone in your jurisdiction, regardless of whether or not that particular person is signed up for Nixle. When you truly do have a terrible incident and you need to evacuate, you don't want to worry about whether or not you're reaching people that are not subscribed. You want to hit every single cell phone, and you want to keep those people safe. Engage gives you that capability. Also, internal communication in order to keep your staff abreast of what's going on, keep city administration or other agencies in the area aware of whatever's happening when you do have a critical incident. And the third platform is 360, Nixle 360. It is everything that Engage has, plus your ability to do reverse 911. So if you need to call every single landline in business, you're able to do that. An interesting use case for reverse 911 that I had not heard before was from a police department that was having a lot of issues in their business district, and the people were really calling on the police department to say, hey, we want to hear from our police officers. We want to know what's going on. And so they are able now to call just the businesses there and let them know, hey, there's someone going around that has this fake credit card, be aware of it. So whoever answers the phone, the staff or whatever in those retail areas is able to be up to date on what's happening. And those businesses really appreciate having that outreach. After we kind of help you decide what platform is really going to work best for you, there are a few other people that you will meet. Some of you have met them already, some of them you haven't. So we've got our Nixle Teams here. Here's our account executives. That's me. I'm up in the top right. Brian, looking very convivial down there in the middle. We're the ones that help you choose which platform is really going to be the best for your agency. We want to make sure that you have everything that you need and that you don't have superfluous features that you don't need. After you choose which platform you want, then we give you over to a team of implementation specialists. They're the ones that are really going to get nitty-gritty with you. They're going to train you on the system. They're going to upload any data you may have for your reverse 911. They're also going to talk to you about important things like, what do you want your agency to be branded as? Here in San Francisco, we get our text messages from a brand called SF Alert, essentially. So it's not specific to San Francisco Police Department or San Francisco EMA. You can have that kind of alerting that covers all of those different agencies because it's branded in that way. They also train you on the system, so they're going to help you learn exactly how to do that internal communication, how to get those replies back from your staff. They're going to train you on how to create a group, what kind of keywords are going to be effective for those groups, and how to set up your National Weather Service feed so that only the weather phenomenon that affect your residents, that message is gotten out to them. Once you're done with implementation, you feel very confident on that particular platform that you have. There's two people that you'll talk to, your account managers, which is everything non-technical. So when you are having trouble with adoption, let's say, you can call your account managers and you can say, look, you know, I've got 10,000 people in my jurisdiction. I've got about 1,000 people signed up. It's been 6 months, and I was really expecting to be at 2,000. What can I do? What are some ideas that you have? So those account managers are able to give you that ongoing education on what other communities are using Nixle for and how they're getting residents to opt in. What are some ideas? Let's make this a forum for discussion and share what different communities are using the system for and being successful with. They're also going to help you with your renewals. When it comes time to renew your system at the end, you can determine, oh, you know what? Previously, we talked about reverse 911. We didn't think we needed it, but a few things have come up, and we've decided we actually do need reverse 911. Can you help me with that? Can we add that integration in? So they're happy to do that for you. They're also going to manage a relationship with you. So anytime you have any questions, anytime that you have a desire or you want to kind of branch out a little bit and you want to ask them, hey, you know, if we wanted to get our library involved, how would we do that? They seem really eager to do this. So they can tell you what's going to work, what's not going to work, and how to manage that. The other team is your technical support. So that's anything technical with the system. If you lose your password, if you need to invite new users, if you need to get an additional platform for some other agency in your jurisdiction, that sort of stuff, they're going to be able to help you out with any of those technical issues. Also, if you need to delve back into the archives and pull out any information from, let's say, an anonymous tipper or some other aspect, that's a technical support issue. We're available for you all the time, 24/7 through email, and there's live phone support as well. So I'm going to pass this back over to Brian. Some information here about solidifying your goals, about what it is that you want.
Perfect. Thank you very much for that, Ivan. So what we're going to present now, guys, is a 7-step process that we would encourage you to jot a few notes down and see how it matches up to where you are today. All right, and where this matches up to your process and who you've been interacting with. So starting off at the top, on the top right, this first part of the process should be identified with your county executive, myself, Ivan, Lindsay. You might have interacted with our colleagues, Jackie and Nathan in the past, but really finding that end game. What is your end game? What is the goal of this program? Too frequently we hear the goal being we want to reach out to our residents. Reach out with what? What sort of messages are you looking to push out? Are you looking to build up more community relations? Are you seeing a spike in crime? You want to alleviate some of the concerns of your residents? Like Ivan mentioned, if there's a business district and there's been a spate of burglaries, are we looking to ease the tension in that area? Has there been any sort of other noticeable event that's taken place in the last 6 months that is on the mind of the resident? Really think that portion of the process through, instead of just we want to send out more messages to the resident. That's a common mistake that we see. Dive a little deeper, peel back the onion a little bit, and see what other ideas come to the forefront. And then really, who are you sending the messages to? Again, I think Ivan nailed it with the businesses. An example of I heard recently, I was up in New Jersey for a user summit. And I'm sure all of you know, up and down the eastern seaboard, it's been in the news quite a bit in the last 3 months. There's been a noticeable uptick in heroin use. Right? So this police department recognizes that they're not just shoveling sand over the issue, they're going at it full bore. What they did was they decided to target all the pharmacies in their municipality. They created a group for all the pharmacists. They're encouraging them to opt in just as a means of communicating with people that have the ability to distribute opiates. That's one of the goals that they had. They know there's an issue. They don't have the silver bullet to cure it, but they're at least taking that initiative to maybe identify a possible solution. So really identifying the goals is a key component of making sure that you have a very successful Nixle solution. And making sure that this isn't just a tool for emergency alerts. That's really the big thing. Have a wide variety of messages. The success that the San Angelo Police Department had that we showed you at the forefront, that department really knows how to send out a smattering of different types of messages. That way, when the resident gets that red message, they know that this is something that is critical, and they will stop what they're doing because there are so many people that are in your community that are really willing and who really want to assist you in these various situations. So after you really identify what the goal is, what is the goal of this program? How are we going to partner with our community more effectively? Then we need to identify who is going to be utilizing the system. For a long time, Nixle was considered a public safety tool. What we're finding is the most successful Nixle cities are getting adoption across not just public safety, not just PD, OEM, and FD, but also other departments, Public Works, Parks and Rec, Roads Department. Again, think about it from the perspective of a resident. You as a resident instead of you as a public safety official. What sort of other messages would you like to receive? Right? In the territory I work in, the Mid-Atlantic, Western PA, real hotbed for Pop Warner football. They love their Pop Warner football out there. But they also hate it when there's a rain out and no one notifies them until they actually drive up to the field. So we have quite a few agencies now that are going to go ahead and utilize Nixle with a keyword Pop Warner. And they encourage all the parents of the Pop Warner players to opt in. And if there is any sort of cancellation with the field, they go ahead and send a quick notification. That's really understanding what it is that the residents want and delivering it to them across a channel that they're comfortable receiving. So really, after nailing that first goal, what's the purpose of this system? Next is figuring out who's going to help you achieve that, which departments, and then which channels are we going to use. Step 3 in this process is working with implementations and operations. So after the paperwork's signed, like Ivan mentioned, we turn you over to Susan and her team in implementations. What you'll have is a 2-step process, 2 meetings over the phone with Susan and her team that will really go ahead and kickstart this process in terms of actually utilizing the solution. They'll provide a detailed training. They will have an onboarding info check sheet that they'll provide to you as best you can. Have that filled out and have that information ready to go. That way we can save as much time as possible. On that first meeting, we'll kind of give you an introduction to the system and give just a general product overview. You do have different systems. We have some Engage customers here. We have some 360 customers as well. And they'll give you a quick tour of it, and then really you'll be able to start using the system straight away. From our experience, usually agencies and administrators are able to pick up the ball and start running right after that first call. But as a best practice, what we really encourage is when you do meet with our implementation and our trainer, try to loop in a few different contacts. What I really see a great deal of success in is identifying one contact per department. So maybe one person from PD, one from City Hall, one from Public Works. And have those 3 people attend that first implementation session. You'll all be on the same page. You'll all understand how to use the system. And then immediately after that first training session, you'll be able to begin brainstorming. What are some ways we can go ahead and utilize this system? So that's that first meeting. And then the second meeting, usually a week, 2 weeks later, you've been in the system, you've played around with it, you might come up with 1 or 2 questions, and that's what that second meeting is for. Susan and her team are going to be prepared to answer any and all the questions that you have, and then we can discuss a full rollout, how we would potentially train sub-users, start organizing your team, your hierarchy with various groups. All of this will be taken care of in those 2 meetings, and in that second optional meeting, we'll point you to a resource library, a very rich resource library that's accessible through your agency.nixle.com, and you'll be able to really find every single answer that you could potentially have a question for within that library. So really, those are the first 3 out of the 7 steps that If you follow it as best you can, follow the recipe as best you can, you're going to be off to a really great start. The fourth step would be beginning to understand, again, who is going to be utilizing the system from a departmental view. So for this, I'm going to flip it back over to Ivan to kind of discuss this particular step as well as the remaining 3 steps in this recipe for success. Ivan?
Great, thanks so much, Brian. Definitely once you first get the system, you want to go head over heels trying to get your residents involved in it. You want them to know, hey, we invested in the system, we want to get resident alerting out to you, and we want to get you that information. How are we going to do that? Well, if you keep it under your hat, probably not going to happen. So what you have to do is you have to reach out across all departments. The first thing you want to go do is go to your administration and say, hey, Mayor, hey, Commissioner, we have this new solution in place. We want to be able to get information to our residents. Please help us. At your next mayoral address, we want you to let all of our residents know that are in the room at the time, we've got this new Nixle solution. Pull out your cell phones right now. You got 500 people in the room. They'll pull out their cell phones. Text text your zip code to 888-777 and become part of the database. Receive these alerts. This is what we signed up for. So you want to go to the very head and say every time that you're interacting with people, every time you're talking to the media, every time that you're talking to a newspaper or anything like that, please bring this up and demonstrate for us exactly what it is that we need. Additionally, you want to go to all of your other department heads. So let's say you're the chief of police. You also want to go to the water authority. You want to go to Parks and Rec. You want to go to all of the other departments and say, hey, we've got this new solution. This is a way to get information out to your residents. This is really important for us. What kind of support can you give us? Talk to the water authority and say, hey, can you put a flyer into all of the water bills and get this information out there? Go to the schools and say, can you put this in your orientation? And that way we can get all of the parents to sign up for these safety alerts. It's very important. Those are the ways that you're going to be able to really start to leverage the different people that work for the city or for your jurisdiction and get people involved, get the word out there repeatedly. Very important to do that. Additionally, you're going to want to go up and go down. You're going to want to go up to your county, let's say, and say, okay, I'm Little Ponchatoula in Louisiana, and I need to go to the Tangipahoa Parish, and I want to let them know I've got this solution and that we are doing something about public safety. So talk to those commissioners at the county level and say that you've got this particular thing. What can you do to help us? Who else wants to be involved? Do you want to be able to have access to our particular jurisdiction?
Ivan, I'm going to interrupt you a little bit. You're starting to get a little crackly on your headset there.
Oh, okay.
I can take over for you if your headset's having issues, if you like.
Please do.
Okay, thanks. Actually, that sounded better right there a second ago. So let's advance to the next slide, please, Brian. So publicity, initial release. So there's certain standard things that every agency is looking to do. One is a press release. Send out a press release, that talks about the recent acquisition of Nixle, describing what it is to your constituents, and send that out over the wires. You can see we have a sample, a template for you. You can see a little screenshot of it there on the right-hand side. Reach out to your account executive or reach out to one of us, the account executives, and we'll send you that template where you can just go ahead and splice in your own city or county name. The other thing is add it to your press release boilerplate. If any of you ever notice that at the end of every press release is always the same exact language about Nixle or about Everbridge or about a city of Novato, and it's always the same regardless of the press release. Add that in, add Nixle into that little boilerplate, just a little one-liner. For more information about Nixle or for more information about Novato or San Francisco, text your zip code to 888-777 or text your San Francisco zip code to 888-777. Just that one little phrase in there will help, and that will be constant advertisement for you with all the press releases that your city or county sends out. Traditional media, this is great to rope in your PIO. Have them help you Get it out to the newspapers, to the radio stations, and to the TV. And the other thing is, do it once the first time. This is the initial release, but then don't forget to do that again when you have some sort of event, maybe a school closure due to snow or some sort of crime wave or something like that. Engage it again. Go back to those individuals and say, hey, you did so great the first time. Please, let's do another little radio tidbit about this recent crime wave and how people should get updates. So just because it worked once, don't think that's all you need to do. Let's do it again and again and again. All right, fast forward to, to the next slide here. Publicity, as far as signage and flyers. A lot of good examples here as far as school handouts. Who wants to know more about getting notifications from your public safety officials than parents? Parents, because of course they're concerned about their home, but they're also concerned about their kids at their schools. And they may have a couple kids at a couple different schools. So the best way to get people's attention is to have a little flyer that you work with the school district that the kids can take home to the parents saying, we have a new notification system, please opt in via this school keyword or these zip codes or whatever you decide is the best. Utility, and also I've got a little T next to each one of these. And that is basically something that Thomasville, North Carolina has done, and Captain Bowling's going to talk a little bit more about it. So utility bill inserts, I'll let him talk about that. A banner at a community event. If you have some sort of festival or a farmer's market or whatever, just put a banner up at the front of the festival saying, hey, for more information about your community or about this event, text this keyword or zip code to 888-777. Of course, have something on your website. And also what some people do is put a car decal on the public vehicles, police officer cars, emergency management cars, or vehicles, as you can see here in that visual there in the middle. Ivan, you back on? You want to take this next slide?
Yeah, absolutely.
Great. You sound great. Go ahead.
Wonderful. So when you're actually reaching out to the community, of course, we want to cover safety, but we want to engage with the community in other ways too. So with those keywords that you're given, you want to create different databases of your residents. I have a county that has a summer concert festival. And so what they do essentially is just create one database for the entire summer concert series. They actually call it Summer Concert, and then they put the year after it. So Summer Concert 16. That's the keyword. That's what people text to opt into that particular event. And now they're able to kind of coordinate with whoever puts on that concert and let people know, oh, this particular performer is not performing today, or this particular one is, or this parking lot is closed, or this road is closed, whatever the case is. And now you're just reaching out to those particular people. What's helpful is that now after you've built that database of people, when a critical incident does happen, when there is a missing child, or when there is some sort of inclement weather, you're able to reach out to the community and leverage their support. So you're able to say, oh, okay, here's a picture of little Joey who's gone missing. We can't find him. Rather than having your 8 police officers looking for Joey that's gone missing, have 3,000 of your residents also looking for Joey. They're able to contact back. And what you're able to do is leverage the community support in order to solve whatever that issue is and reunite Joey and his mother. You're able to take a picture of that, send it out again, and say thank you so much. This is why we love being here. This is why we reach out to you guys for help, because we are a community. So you want to be able to leverage that support from the community for those different events. At the end of that particular event, you want to be able to move those people into the general database. You send out a message at the end that says, thank you so much for coming to this particular event. If you want to receive general messages about safety, text your zip code to 888-777. Over and over and over again, we find that, 40% of those particular event goers will then go into the general database. So if you're looking for a way to get more residents to opt into that general database, having these event keywords is the way to do it, because people see the benefit of having them for this particular event, and then they opt into the general database. You can also create different subgroups for your neighborhood watch groups. Those are a group of people that are very committed to the community. They want information, and you want to be able to talk to them in a regular cadence. How can you do that? Create a group for them, give them the information that they want, coordinate those efforts. Whenever you have city council meetings, you can create with our scheduled messaging feature. You can set up a message for the week or the day before a particular city council meeting, reminding all of your residents, hey, there's a city council meeting tomorrow at 6 o'clock. Schedule all of those beforehand, have them go out, and now you've got greater community attendance at those city council meetings. You see more of that engagement happening. Farmers market, this is actually really interesting. We have this city here in Glenville, California, and they have a farmers market every week in different areas, but they have one particularly large one on the first Friday of every month. And they've got different performers that come at a stage that they set up, and in between each of the performers, they announce Nixle. So to all of the people who are going to that farmers market, they get to hear that cadence over and over again about signing up and getting into that database so that they can receive those public safety alerts. And it's surprising how often they get like 100 new people every time that they do this for that big farmers market over the summer. So don't discount these little community engagement opportunities that you have. You want to be able to have your presence there where you've got your residents the most, and you want to kind of, hit that nail over and over again. I'd also heard from one of my coworkers in Hamilton County, Texas, Chief McGinnis, who kind of created a game around it. And he would get different prizes donated from local businesses, so a bike from Walmart or whatever the case is. He would save those up, and then he would, whenever he was talking at the schools, he would tell the kids, hey, have your parents come to this booth at this particular festival. We're going to have these prizes there. We're going to do a raffle. Bring your parents, have them sign up. For Nixle, I'll give you a raffle ticket, and then they would raffle off these prizes. So there's a way to kind of encourage people to sign up, to get kids involved, to get parents involved, and to get that word out there over and over again. All of these are ways of engaging your community outside of public safety and kind of allowing yourself to talk to the 90% of your residents that most of the time you're not going to interact with, but they do hunger for that information, they do want it, and they appreciate being able to receive it every time that they do. With that, I'm going to go ahead and pass this back over to Paul. We've got a guest speaker, and he's going to introduce Captain Eddie. Paul?
Hey, thanks, Ivan. Yeah, absolutely. So we have, as I said, for the new people that have joined midstream, we have a guest speaker, Captain Eddie Bowling from Thomasville Fire Department in North Carolina. He came on a couple of months ago, and we have watched him from afar, embrace the system, and really sort of take the bull by the horns, if you will, and utilize Nixle to its fullest. So we asked him to join us today. He's created a couple of slides and has some stories to share with you. So with that, Captain Bowling, over to you, and thank you again for helping us out today.
Fantastic. Thanks again for allowing me the opportunity to speak today and sort of, I guess, provide some of the lessons learned that I've experienced through my journey in learning about Nixle. And so the first slide that you'll see references our story. So back about 5 years ago, we had an EF2 tornado touchdown in my local community. And when that tornado touched down, I am a captain on the fire truck. So I work 24-hour shifts, which takes time away from my family. And so on this particular day, I was working on shift, along with other firefighters. And so we began getting reports of a tornado touching down in our community, our neighboring community, just one city over. But you can see, based on the map, that this tornado touched down in both jurisdictions. So it kind of traveled a long distance. And so what I experienced that night is I was relatively new in emergency and disaster management realm. And so I got maps out, and I began plotting points on a map indicating where 911 calls were received. So when a 911 call was reported, I could plot on the map where that call was at and sort of gauge where the tornado was at and what sort of damage was being produced from the tornado. And so real quickly I was able to realize that because of the pattern of this tornado, the location that it was originated in and also the direction it was headed in, you can probably faintly see about 3 individual points along the map. And those are points of interest for me because that indicates where my family lives. And with this tornado being 200 yards wide, it took out a great deal of area. So on that evening, I had plotted those points and sort of gauged that it was heading in the direction of my church. And so, you know, our only means of communication at that point in time was to pick up the phone. We didn't have a reverse 911 system in place that would reach those folks, you know, in a timely manner. And so we were able to call by phone and say, hey, folks, you need to brace yourself. There's a tornado touching. And you can see about 2/3 of the way across, you can see a star just off of the line, and that's where our church was located. There were about 75 members inside of our fellowship hall, and the tornado just missed them. So at that point in time, I started thinking, man, the system that we have in place is ineffective at best. And so I started doing some research and asking questions to my community leaders, you know, wanting to know how would we let folks know if there was a disaster. And at that point in time, the only capability we had, again, was reverse 911. And we decided that, again, that was ineffective at best based on the numbers they were providing us with that they could reach and their customer base. So, which will sort of lead into my next slide, where it talks about how we've kind of transitioned to where we're at now. And you'll see on the slide, this talks about the onboarding and implementation phase. And the very first point I kind of brought up was building relationships. And so, again, it took quite some time. You know, the tornado was in 2011. In 2015, I actually had the opportunity with my city to spark a conversation with our city leaders to engage them in community notification. And so, again, prior to that, there was reverse 911, which was sort of ineffective. And when you started looking at what the capabilities were, it paled in comparison to what we needed for our community. So I began to build some relationships within our community. The fire chief that I work for is an excellent leader. He gives us opportunities to reach out to other areas. So it allowed me to collaborate with the city manager and with all local department heads and kind of pull everyone together and show them what the software could potentially do for our community. You know, it kind of gave me some direction. So at that point in time, we got everyone together. We had a safety meeting within our municipal government, and at the safety meeting, we decided we've got to sell this software. So we pitched it to the entire department heads for, you know, each governing agency within the city, and told them what the software could do, and that sort of piqued their interest. And so again, that was a good opportunity for us to network together with the people in our city who would be the ones approving the funding to make that happen. So, you know, shortly thereafter, it was sort of undeniable that there was nothing out there in our community that would take the place, and we needed something to be able to reach our community. So we pursued an emergency notification software, which sort of brings us to where we're at now. So almost a year later, we were able to get a contract together, seek funding, and again, going back to the collaborating with community partners, basically I went out and beat the pavement and spoke with anyone who would listen to me about the needs in our community and sort of trying to find a way to bridge that gap. And so we were able to seek that funding and retrieve it. And so in the process, we were able to build those relationships, which brings us to our onboarding and our implementation phase. And so by having the relationships already built prior to you know, buying the software, we could pull all of those department leaders in for our onboarding call with Susan Sadat there at Nixle. And so I think it's very important, or it was at least important for us, to include as many people as you think that you might want to have involved in the software together so that they can communicate. Because the onboarding call is Nixle's opportunity to train our employees, show them what the software can do, sort of reaffirm what I've told them to kind of give them an idea of what we need and what it can do. They kind of reaffirmed that, trained everyone, and then we waited about 2 weeks later and we came back where we discussed, you know, issues we've had in our learning, and then Susan kind of went over and answered any questions before we actually went live. And so that process was, say, maybe 3 to 4 weeks. But I would encourage you to bring everyone together and also network with other agencies. And you'll see later in my presentation that we brought together our 911 center, our communication leaders, the fire department, the police department, city officials. We also brought together our health department within the county, because they have a need for a communication system where they can reach and push out notifications to restaurants if there's food recalls and that sort of thing. So it's important, if you think that someone might benefit from the software, certainly pull them into this meeting so that they can be a part of it and learn as much as possible. And then after that, the onboarding takes place, you can sort of tighter down the permission levels as to who has levels of access. And so the last thing on this slide is reverse 911. For me, dealing with reverse 911 was educational because I had never been exposed to it, because let's face it, I'm a captain on the fire truck, and so we hadn't had the opportunity to play with the software. And so what I would recommend, or what was beneficial for us, is to first identify all the telephone providers in your community. Know what companies that you need to contact or that service your customers in the area, and that's landlines. And then I had a difficult time with our companies locating who to speak with within the company because it's obviously not something the company gets contacted about regularly unless they're a national telephone provider. And so I would recommend looking for an E911 planner or someone in external affairs. That seems to help locate the person in the company that can give you the information you need, because this is classified data. It's their address, their names, their phone numbers of all of their customers, and sometimes they're reluctant to give that information out. Of our community, one of the providers was absolutely free. I got the information within 15 minutes and received an email with all the data. Our second agency that I dealt with wanted to charge, and so they first threw out a rather large price. It was like $2,000 base fee and then 4 cents per telephone number. So what we found out in doing some research is that price is negotiable. It takes a good IT guy about 15 or 20 minutes just to pull a database of numbers from all of your telephone providers in your community, and send you a spreadsheet over, and then Nixle handles the importation of that data, and they geocode it so that it's based on address. And so that's not something that it's not a lengthy process. And by knowing that it's not a lengthy process, you can negotiate that price a little more. And so what would have cost us close to $3,000 or $4,000 to gain our data, we got it for less than $900. So again, those are some things that helped us with our onboarding and our implementation process to get the software going. And so we can transition to our recruiting section. So, one of the other gentlemen spoke on water bill flyers. So for us, we sat down and sort of brainstormed, how do we want to notify our community? Because it's great to have a communication software, but if you don't reach your community, it doesn't benefit them at all. You have to get buy-in from the community. And so it's a challenging part because people are inundated with technology. There's different apps that are available, and people get text messages and emails, and so you sort of have to sell them on why they want to receive your notifications. So the very first thing we did was send out water bill flyers. And so our community has about 27,000 residents, and there are roughly 11,000 structures that receive water in our community that the city provides. So we wanted to work with, put a flyer, and so we went to the website, pulled off a generic flyer, adapted it to our needs, sent it to our printing company, and they charged us about $550 for printing costs, folding, and stuffing in the envelopes to get the information into the water bill flyers. And so that we seemed to get some feedback from that, not as much as I would have liked, but I think the $550 was well spent with the response that we received. And so other areas that we sort of discussed were social media. So we created a Facebook page for our community. And for our community, it's Thomasville, North Carolina, and then be ready. And so we want our citizens to be ready and be informed of what's going on in their community, and sort of engage them on things that are going on around them. And I was absolutely surprised at the number of folks that want to hear what's going on in our community. And so another area was Twitter. We reached out and set up a Twitter account, and that was Thomasville Ready. And so again, we want to convey to our community that we're ready and we expect them to be prepared as well. And so we want to make sure that everyone's on the same page. And then lastly, there's a website widget that was available, and we could put the website widget onto our website, which allowed us to steer our community to our website to sign up for alerts. And so it helped us sort of engage that part of the community. I visited a lot of area businesses, and you'll see under my special programs where we reached out to daycares, hospitals, and so we wanted to get those folks on board so that, let's face it, they're assembly occupancy, so they have lots of folks gathered there, and so that's a large target audience for us. And so lastly, did a lot of speaking at senior service groups. We want to meet with senior service groups in the community. Again, that's a high-risk population for us when a disaster strikes. That's the folks we want to be able to provide services to, and so by engaging them in the program, we're able to reach those folks and bring them on board with our software. And so we can transition to our special programs. So some of the special programs that we identified that we had not even thought about prior to starting the program. And so after we got access to Nixle and began working with the program, there were some areas that our community was deficient and we didn't even realize we were deficient in. And so the very first one was an emergency lockdown notification. And so in our community, it's common for a school to go on lockdown. It could be a domestic situation, it could be a disgruntled parent, it could be any number of things that kind of escalate into a lockdown for that school. And so what we identified in our community is that because the school goes on lockdown, there are other critical facilities in the area that have been identified that would need to go on lockdown that haven't necessarily received any information. They have no idea. So I've got one particular area in my community that has a middle school, a high school, it's got an assembly occupancy, a daycare, and a YMCA, all within a block. And so if the school goes on lockdown, none of the area businesses receive notifications. So we created an emergency notification program just for lockdowns. And we only allowed our critical facilities, the ones that were geographically located in the area, to be a part of that system. And so basically we did that. You could do it two ways. You could do it with keyword, which gets you their phone number, but it doesn't get you their name. For us, I met with each individual agency independently and gathered that information. So now I can have their name and their phone number, and so that if maybe someone leaves the agency, we can update that information periodically and remove that person from the notification list if they don't need to receive those notifications. And again, that also gives those folks in the emergency lockdown notification group the opportunity to opt into general notifications under Nixle Wire. And then so lastly was our special programs for the health department. So the health department has two areas of concern. One is restaurant notifications. It's important for them to notify the community if there's a food recall or if there's a pandemic outbreak of some sort of virus. And so we're able to do that. We can harness this technology under a private group, and we've included our restaurants into this area. And so we can push notifications just to our restaurants to let them know what's happening from the health department status. And so lastly, doctor's notifications. Again, if there's medication recalls, food recalls, whatever, we can have a doctor's offices on that sort of notification group as well. And so that with the touch of one button and within 30 seconds to a minute, the health department can reach a lot of their customer base just by pushing a notification out to the offices and let folks know what's going on. So again, that's the last slide that I have and all the information I have. I appreciate the opportunity, and I'll stick around if there's any questions after the presentation. I'll be glad to entertain those.
Great. Thank you very much, Captain Bowling. So what we're going to do, everybody, we're running a little short on time, so I'm going to ask Lindsay Rogers to kind of consolidate the questions. We're going to do a brief Q&A, but I'd be remiss if I didn't show you one more slide on events while Lindsay's kind of tabulating these questions for us. Both Captain Bowling and Ivan mentioned the importance of keywords, especially around events. I want to share with you one particular slide. This is from one of the agencies that really uses keywords to great effect. They are a county in Maryland. What they did with the 4th of July, they actually did a study for us. Basically what they did was they created a keyword, MoCo July 4th, as you can see on the bottom, and it is reflected with the green line. What they did was they marketed MoCo July 4th for anyone attending the July 4th festivities. They also pushed their attendees to go online to a web form to also opt in through that manner as well. They gave them both options because we wanted to see how much more effective keyword opt-ins were, specifically around a customized, personalized keyword. And as you can see here,
hey Brian, you cut out there. You seem to be missing from action.
I'm sorry, can you hear me now?
I'm not sure. It might have some audio problems. Why don't we flip over to Lindsay, see if there's any Q&A. We are short on time, so maybe we could just hit 1 or 2 questions. Lindsay, anything in the question queue?
Yeah, we had a few questions. To those of you whose questions we aren't able to address just due to time constraints, I'll make sure to have your account manager follow up with you via email. So if we don't cover your question, apologize, but we'll follow up with you offline. We did have a question from John, though, and this might benefit other attendees. He was asking about if we have templates for the flyers that Captain was mentioning. Brian, did you want to, or does somebody want to talk about that?
Sure. Brian, are you on, or shall I tackle that one? I think Brian's still off. So we don't have, I would say, Nixle-generated templates for flyers. What we do have is a small library of things that we have picked up from other agencies, what other agencies have done. Some are awesome, some are very good. But if there are certain things that you are trying to do as an agency, for example, a water bill, reach out to us or your account manager, and we will look through our little library and see if something might be appropriate, something that Thomasville and Captain Bowling has done, or maybe some other agency. A little less of a template and a little bit more of ideas. I guess that's what you could call it, maybe an idea locker. We do have templates with regards to a press release and maybe a few other items, but most of the best ideas come from our customers.
And Paul, just to chime in there, so for any customers still on the line, we do have a library of resources. They're not going to be custom branded, so you might want to have a flyer that has your logo and maybe you want to customize some information. But if you go into the support center at the top right when you log into Nixle, there is a library of promotional resources. So that would include the press release template that Paul mentioned. There are actually some kind of basic like water bill inserts and flyers, and you might want to customize those. So feel free to look in the support center if you're looking for more promotional resources.
Excellent. Thanks, Lindsay.
All right, and I think that might be all that we have time for, folks. But like I said, I'm going to follow up with everybody who had a question. We'll have your account manager reach out. And if any other questions come up, feel free to reach out to your account manager.
Excellent. Thank you, Lindsay. Thank you, everyone, especially thank you, Captain Bowling. Really appreciate your contribution to everyone. Sorry we ran a little bit long, but hopefully it was worthwhile. I think it seems like most everyone stayed on until the end. Thank you very much. As Lindsay said, if you had any questions about anything, reach out to us or your account manager, and we'd be happy to support you. Thanks so much. Have a great day and a great weekend.